So today I did want to talk about some of the kind of rare and expensive PS4 games that I have in my personal collection. Because I actually have, I wouldn't say a bunch, but I have a few that are worth a decent bit of money that are kind of randomly, sporadically, just out in my collection that I have. And you would never guess that these games are actually worth something. So let's get right into it, starting with the first one, which I think is one of the more well-known ones for being kind of expensive. And that is Gravity Rush Remastered. I'm not exactly sure why this one is super rare, but it's about $60, which I guess, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call that super rare. I'd just say that's a somewhat expensive game, definitely above what you'd expect for something like this, especially since it is, published by Sony. This remake was done by Blue Point, and it is a, first-party PlayStation game. So why is it so expensive? I'm not totally sure. I'm assuming it just had some kind of low print. It also is like a remaster, so maybe a bunch of people bought this on the PS Vita, as it wasn't out for that long exclusively on the Vita before it got remastered for the PS4. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't think it's sold the best, but I'm not totally sure why it's worth this much. But yeah, this is a fantastic game. I played all the way through it. I had a blast with it, and of course I also picked up Gravity Rush 2 with it, and Gravity Rush 2 is the next one up. Gravity Rush 2 is about the exact same price. I really don't see much of a difference in the price between these two. They're both around anywhere from $55 all the way up to $75. Somewhere in that range is where these guys are at. And Gravity Rush 2, while I have not played it yet, I beat the first game, haven't jumped into the second one yet. Gravity Rush 2, it might be slightly more expensive. I'm not totally sure why, but this is a sequel to Gravity Rush Remastered. So I feel like since this is a game made by PlayStation Studios, specifically for the PS4, it wasn't launched on anything else, it wouldn't be that rare. I feel like this would have more copies out in the wild. It would have sold better because it wasn't held back by being a remaster. And so, people already had Gravity Rush Remastered. This is a completely new game, but no, this game is still somewhat expensive, somewhat rare, and hard to come across in this day and age. So it's really cool to have this one. I've heard that the gameplay pretty much improves in every, all across the board from Gravity Rush Remastered, so I'm sure I'll enjoy this one. But these two, the Gravity Rush games, are both somewhat expensive PS4 games, and I think are the most expensive first-party PlayStation 4 exclusive games that Sony released and published. Then we jump into Activision and their whole world of licensing issues. So we have Transformers Devastations here, which this game is, I would say, honestly, really fun. I really like Transformers Devastations. I think it's one of the best Transformers games out there. And, it was on the PS4 and the Xbox One. On the PS4, this might be the most expensive one that I have. This one's like $85. I was lucky enough to just buy it at GameStop like 4 years back, maybe 5 years back, for like $20. Played through it, thought it was awesome. And it's just because Activision does not like to renew their licenses with companies. Transformers is something that they couldn't hold on to. So now this game, of course, is no longer on shelves as new, and it's hard to come across it used, and it was removed from all digital storefronts. So it's hard to find this game. Same with Transformers Rise of the Darkspark. Again, it's the exact same thing. Activision did not renew their license, so they could not keep this on the digital storefronts. It was pretty much delisted everywhere. Now it's much harder to come across physical copies. I will say physical copies of this game are far more common on stuff like the Wii U, the Xbox 360, the PS3. On the PS4, though, this game is like $50. So if you want to pick it up, it is going to be just a tad more expensive than you probably want to pay, especially considering this is one of the worst reviewed Transformers games. Like, pretty much everyone doesn't like this. I got it. I was pretty young when I played it, so I played through it. I was like, dang, this is awesome. I really like Transformers Rise of the Darkspark, although I didn't really know what was going on in the story, to be fair. So, it's a whatever game, but it is expensive, and I do think it has a cool box art. Then Activision strikes again with the Amazing Spider-Man 2. This one is another pretty well-known one. Of course, Spider-Man PS4 and Miles Morales absolutely took off, and everyone loves those games. Same with Spider-Man 2. And the Amazing Spider-Man is just completely different. This is a one made, back in 2014 when the PS4 was just first coming out, made by Activision, or not. It was made by Beanox and published by Activision. And of course, it got delisted everywhere because Activision couldn't renew the license for this game. And so now physical copies are a lot more expensive, especially on the PS4, which does make sense because, Spider-Man is owned by Sony. Sony makes the PlayStation consoles. Kind of makes sense, although this game is a lot cheaper, again, on stuff like Wii U, PS3, Xbox 360, stuff like that. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 isn't nearly as expensive as it is on PS4, but on PS4, this is like a $50 game. I think the game is decent. Again, I haven't put too much time into it. I've only put like 30 minutes into it. It gets a ton of hate, but you know, I thought it was whatever for what it is, although I haven't put all the time in the world into it. Then we also have Skylanders, which was published by Activision as well. There's a few other Skylanders games out there that are also expensive on the PS4. I know SWAT 4 is also rare. Here I have Trap Team. This is my most expensive one on the PS4. This one is like really expensive now. I see it like $80, $90, $100. It's kind of crazy. It's because it's Skylanders. It uses a bunch of weird gimmicks with portals and actual figures, and so you're not going to be able to just find this on the digital storefront. It is not there on the PS4's digital storefront. There's no digital version of it, and of course that means to hunt down a copy is going to be pretty hard, especially considering this was released so early on in the PS4's life cycle, and a lot of people weren't buying a next-gen console to play Skylanders on it, so it kind of makes sense. I'm sure it did not sell well at all on the PS4, so copies just aren't that common these days. It's pretty hard to come by a copy, but you know, Skylanders Trap Team is probably my favorite game in the Skylanders franchise. I think it's great, but yeah, there's just another one that's out there, and it's pretty expensive. And then the last one I want to mention, which I'm not actually too sure about, is a Darksiders War Mastered Edition. When I bought this game, it was just hard to find a copy anywhere. Like, they weren't necessarily expensive, like too expensive or anything. It was like $25, $30 when I was looking. I managed to get this copy for about 18 or 19 bucks, I think. But now, like, a lot of the listings that I see are like 45 bucks. And if one pops up for like 30 bucks, it instantly sells. So I'm like, dang, is this game climbing in price? I'm not totally sure. It's Darksiders. This is the one that, you know, you always see Darksiders 2 out there, and Darksiders 3 and Genesis. Those ones aren't really worth anything on the PS4. Darksiders War Mastered Edition, though, I don't see like ever. I barely see listings for it anywhere. And so I'm glad I picked up a copy. I think it's a fine game. I do like it. I enjoyed Darksiders, but you know, it's not the best game in the world. It's kind of that hack and slash God of War type gameplay, and I do really like it, but this game I just think is starting to rise in price. I'm not totally sure why. There are a bunch of other weird expensive PS4 games out there, you know, Godzilla, Deadpool, that type of stuff. I don't have all of them. These are just the ones that I have. Let me know which ones you have. Let me know what you think of these games here that I talked about today, and why do you think they're expensive. I will see you all in the next one. Have a good one, everybody. Bye bye.